I'll call the regular board meeting of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District to order. Start with the roll call, please.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
I am here.
Manager Taves.
I'm here.
Manager Shotmiller. President Anderson.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. Let's proceed. Do we have any visitors today?
Yeah, Ted Hansen.
And would you give a location?
Wyoming.
Thank
Comfort
you.
Lake.
Thank you. For the record. I
Yeah.
knew that, of course. Next is the setting of meeting agenda. Do you want to address that, Mike? I know there's some changes.
From what was posted on Monday, I think we've added, the Forest Lake Cooperative Aquatic Waste Species Agreement. So first item on new business.
All right, everybody has that addition, I hope. Any other changes? Okay, is there a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll move to accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you.
And
Second,
I'll second that. Manager
Okay.
Schmaltz.
thank you. Roll call?
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Baki.
Aye.
Manager Taves.
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Motion carries. Let's move on to new business. First item is the Forest Lake Cooperative Aquatic Invasive Species Agreement.
Board of Managers, I'll handle this board item. I'm gonna just shorten it to the tri-party agreement, so I don't have to repeat that one. The tri-party agreement's purpose is to share the expense of treating AIS between the city of Forest Lake, the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, and the Forest Lake Lake Association. The agreement hasn't been in place since 2022. Funding levels have remained same since that time, in reaction to the increased cost of management on the lake. The Lake Association has asked the watershed district and the city to increase the funding levels. So just due to budget planning, the amount is the same in 2026. And for the first time, the agreement would be a 3-year agreement to allow for a budget increase to be planned. Then there will be a 15% increase for the 2027 season and a 10% increase in the 2028 season. The expenses of the district have been above the agreement levels without counting grant monies, which aren't eligible as a part of the agreement. However, these grant funds have been decreasing in the amount we're receiving. So the district, with past expenses on the lake, we expect to meet our commitments for each year. And the increased amount will allow the type of management necessary on the lake.
Any questions, comments?
The only comment I would want to make is we probably should refer to this as, at least in somewhere in future, as a tri-party agreement, because it seems like everyone calls that the name of the agreement. So just for future meetings and that, we should try to get that in there if we can, Mike Sandlinger.
Understood, thank you.
President Anderson,
Yes, Manager Baki, go ahead.
why such a high anticipated future cost increase?
Manager Baki, are you asking why there's the 15% increase in 2027? Or just why
Yes.
the
Yes, why the increase in 2027 and 2028?
The agreement has not been covering all of the expenses of AIS management on the lake, in previous years. Forest Lake, the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District has spent more than our commitment, and when we spend more than that commitment, it's just discretionary, and we don't receive any help with those expenses from our partners. So the increase is try to recoup the costs that we are already spending.
Dave, I could mention, maybe this will help also. You know, the costs of herbicides and so forth have just skyrocketed in the last 5 years. And we've never had a change in the $150,000 total that we've been working with since the program was initiated in 2022. So everything else has gone up since then, and the 150,000 hasn't changed. So we're trying to move it up to 200,000 eventually. And this year we were over. You know, things are getting more and more. We had that Eurasian water milfoil one year. And this year, again, I think we were overspent quite a bit. So,
Didn't we have an overage that we spent the money on, but it wasn't spread out to the other two?
Correct. If we spend above our commitment of, this year will be $63,750. Any amount we spend above that is not eligible for, help from our partners to pay.
Mhm. And how do we fund this? Does it come from a grant that we receive or is it levy?
Our commitment is levy based.
Okay.
We do receive grants, but any costs that are offset by grants are not eligible in the agreement.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, we are seeing year to year decreases in grant funding.
you know, the other point is that the city's amount of 63,000, that was the same amount that they've been spending since 2007. So that hasn't increased since 2007. But even more importantly is that money used to come out of the general fund of the city. And about 5 years ago, with the that administrator before this one, they moved it into the MS4 program, which is a special tax fund to manage stormwater or lake issues. So we've really lost that money in purchasing power because now it comes out of the MS4, which we had that money anyway to spend. So there's a lot of changes that have occurred that haven't been reflected in this budget. The other thing to mention is that it's a good deal for us because, you know, we would end up spending it anyway, probably, because we have to take care of these issues as a watershed district. And by having partners, they absorb part of this cost. And that also helps us get more grants by having more people participating in the, in the protection and management of the lake. So this all kind of fits together as an important part of the puzzle, I think.
I'd like to ask another question, Mike S. on page 2, showing the amounts that we've paid in past years.
Yes.
And that's significantly more than what we're showing in 2026 to 2028. Is there a reason why you think that we're not going to spend or need the money that we used in those 4 years compared to this reduced amount?
I would like to increase it more, but I'm not sure, some of the partners in the organization would be able to raise their commitments to the same level.
Not even the city?
So the way the tri-party usually shakes out is the watershed district and the lake association meet our contribution amounts, the city does not. And then they cut us a check to make up for the difference. So, they likely would not want to increase it even more, cause that'd be more money coming out of their budget.
And wasn't this meant initially to be supplemental to what the district was already doing? Or does this take the place of what the district was doing?
My understanding of the agreement is that the purpose is to share the expenses. between the three groups. So this would have supplanted what we were doing before. However, I was not here at that time.
Okay, Mike, Kenny, please.
President Anderson, managers, managers most probably recall that in prior years, there was this staff, it was typically Dave Adams, myself, and then Garrett and Jerry, typically were the people involved in the development of this, and Mr. Holman developed the language of the agreement, but the city wanted to formalize it into an agreement format. We were historically sharing costs as like Sandy described. We would typically spend it and then we would get a check at the end of the year reimbursed, if you will. So this is then a formal structure agreement of what was occurring previously.
Mhm. Are there any changes to the text of this document? I didn't get the other one out to look word for word.
There were changes. My understanding is there no changes to the principle of the agreement, but I'll let Mr. Holtman answer that part.
Okay, Chuck?
Madam Chair, managers, aside from the moving to a 3-year agreement and adjusting the financial commitments, all the other changes were just for clarity.
Okay. Okay. Well, board, this has some relationship to something I'm gonna bring up down under the manager's area. So we can save that conversation for then. What would you like to do?
I'll move to authorize the district administrator to execute the 2026-2028 funding support agreement, normally called tri-party agreement for AIS and lake management activities on Forest Lake, on advice of council and with any final non-substantive changes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Manager Taves. Roll call?
Manager Schmaltz.
President Anderson, is there further discussion?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, and given our financial situation, as I look at the projected costs of this item, I think we need a little bit more time to explore other options of funding. I understand Manager Schmaltz's point that this is a trilateral agreement and it's a partnership. But given our budget situation, I think we need a little more time to consider this and come up with other options. Otherwise, I'm going to vote no.
Okay, I think maybe having some clarification from staff would be helpful. What is the budget for AIS treatment on Forest Lake? Emily probably knows that. Maybe Mike, you,
Yeah, I can pull it up here shortly.
okay.
Emily might be.
For President Anderson, the budget for Forest Lake AIS management in 2026 is a total of $60,500, $11,000 of which was earmarked for grants and other revenue, and $49,500 was earmarked for levy spend.
And what was the total again?
$60,500.
Okay. And the levy expend again?
$49,500.
Okay,
President
So
Anderson,
yes,
I guess my other comment is, why does this have to be a 3-year agreement? I guess these are some clarifications I would like to have.
okay,
President, just wondering if we could do a similar analysis on Bowen and Comfort, how much we're spending and then how many lots, because for Forest Lake, it comes out to just under $53 per lot
mhm.
for that expenditure.
And if the budget's only 63,000, we're going to probably be overspent this year. We have any currently problems at all. But we'll have to, because normally our budget's been much higher than that. What has it been in last year? Mike, do you have that number? Mike Sandiger?
Yeah, so the number I had for last year, on page 2 of the memo does include staff time. But let me pull up a more detailed list here.
Well, AIS is something that it's something that we don't have any control over, and that normally have to be more reactive. We can plan, but we can't plan with what Mother Nature is going to deal with us, deal to us each year. So, in many respects, it's one of our areas of the budget that we don't have as much control as we'd like to have. We have asked the watershed, or have asked the lake associations to pay for Eurasian water milfoil. And that can be a very big bill for the Forest Lake Association also. So otherwise, it's something we just can't ignore. If we have zebra mussels or a new AIS that comes into the lake, you're going to have to respond to it, whether you have the budget or not. And I guess the board will have to decide that, but that's what we're really here for.
I understand that, Steve, but I think it's a matter of who pays. And that's something that we should discuss. Given our Citizens Advisory Committee's advice has been that we watch our budget. And I think this is an opportunity to do just that and have a discussion with the lake associations, including the Bone Lake Association, about paying for a portion of the treatment that may ask them to dig a little deeper.
Anything else? Well, I think that we have an obligation to do an amount that's comfortable for us. The spend that we've had in the past is double what we're talking about here in 2026. And I don't know, probably even going up to 2028. It's getting closer to those numbers though that are on the back. So that's a sizable increase from 2026 to 2028 as well. I am going to break what I said before. One of the things that I talked to Mike Kenny about probably for the last couple of years is a concept that is available, and that's to establish separate districts within our watershed. And since Forest Lake is by far and away, of course, the biggest lake that we have, obviously the costs are going to be a lot higher than they are unless you do the per property mathematics that Mike was talking about to sort of equalize it. But I know that the spend on Comfort and Forest Lake, or excuse me, and Bone Lake is not anywhere near obviously what Forest Lakes is. And even if you put it into the 3 bowls, it's still more per bowl. You've got three lakes basically linked together. So there is obviously a different need in Forest Lake. It's almost 70% littoral. And so there are a lot of differences in that type of a lake than there are with Bone and Comfort. So it's not an exact apples to apples kind of thing. So that all has to be taken into account. But what I'd really like us to think about is this separation or the creation, I should say, of a specific district for the needs of Forest Lake, which goes way beyond obviously what we're spending in the others. I don't know enough about it, but if the district board is interested in exploring it, I would like to have Chuck put a memo together to explain how this works. I know other watersheds in the metro do use this, some outstate as well. And so it has a purpose. That's why it's in the statutes. But Chuck, I hate to put you on the spot here, but do you know enough about that to give the board just a overview?
Well, Madam Chair and managers, if you're referring to water management districts, which are provided for under the watershed law, that's an approach. It sounds like what you're thinking of. It allows the district through amending its plan to identify and establish a specific district, basically an inventory of real estate parcels that are encompassed and contribute funding for specific purposes. And so you're correct. Other watershed districts have used this for different purposes, including specific lake management. So basically, your engineer would identify, based on the work that you want to do, identify a proposal for properties to be included that would benefit from that work, and just a framework for how the cost of that work would be allocated among those properties, which could be just, per capita, or could be different levels of benefit. And then you can establish that into law, and then the county would manage that as basically a sub charge to those identified properties separately from your ad valorem levy. And it would be something where in establishing the original district, and then in looking at each year's budget for that district, you would have communications and relationship with the lake association or the people in the district.
Okay, you're shaking your head, so you.
Yeah,
had
I've done
experience?
this a couple times.
Okay.
For different districts, so.
Do you want to give us a little bit of an overview and?
Sure, it's pretty straightforward process from our end about evaluating the different applicable technologies for the individual issues to make sure that it's a fair and third-party process. And then those are then assigned, costs of that is then assigned, as Chuck already explained. And then, in my experience, we've had public hearings to kind of go over the results, so everything's transparent about what is happening. And
yeah, it's not something we can do immediately, but certainly think about it for next year. If we can get that structure, understanding, for the board and how it could work. One of the other things that I thought this might be appropriate for also is, we all know that Forest Lake doesn't have enough natural shoreline. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in that right now. And rather than spending all the effort and money that it takes from the district to try to educate, I thought this might be a way to help the Forest Lake area understand its importance. And then there would have to be a education process and program that goes along with that, specific for Forest Lake. And that could be very beneficial. The thing I was talking to you about doing with, well, maybe it was Mike actually, about doing work with the trust of the Minnesota Land Trust. That would be, I think it was with Mike Kenny. That would be a way also to encourage people around the lake to donate, if they have any natural lands, to donate that to conservation. And we would be able to use that, obviously, to help improve that shoreline area for the number of parcels for Forest Lake. So it has a lot of application. When do you need to have this signed document to the other partners? Steve, is there a?
Well,
do we have?
this has to be signed for this year. So I mean, it's a 3-year program.
Mhm.
but it's all in one document. So if we don't sign it, we don't have an agreement going into the year. Can I
Right.
ask a question? Just, uh,
Sure.
Chuck, have you familiar with the White Bear Conservation District? Different than I
No.
think you're talking about a LMO, Lake Management Organization. That's different than a conservation district, a lake conservation district, I believe. And I was wondering what their relationship is with Rice Creek Watershed District. If they, or maybe Ann knows that too. I don't know offhand. I used to talk with them a lot about 20 years ago when we were trying to set up the Lake Association and everything. And they have their own organization, their own payment systems down there. They collect, I'm not sure how they collect money. I don't know whether they get much support from the Rice Creek Watershed District though. So that's something we may want to look into. And I think that this idea of creating a separate funding organization just for the lake, I don't know that we want to go down that path because I can tell you what's going to happen. And it's not going to be good for the watershed district.
Well, I think this is a important issue that people need time to really digest, I think, a little bit more. If we postpone this until March, so that we have at least this other meeting in February to talk about it. With the board, is the board comfortable with that?
I'm not sure exactly what the timing is. I have to talk to Jerry about that. He's been kind of handling this whole thing from the very beginning.
Mhm.
But I'm sure that'll be fine. I mean, we've got an agreement, it's just pending. I don't think they've approved theirs yet either. So it probably has to go to the city council. So we have
Yeah.
some time to look at other options. Yes, we have some time, I'm sure.
Our budgeted dollars for the for Forest Lake is, as if I'm writing this correctly, wrote it down correctly, it's 60,500. So it's almost the same as what's presented in this document. So we wouldn't be changing anything. This is for the board, to understand. We wouldn't be able to do anything with a separate taxing district for this year anyway. That would have to take this whole next year, putting it together and voting on it and making sure that that's what we want to do. And dealing with the public, information meetings and so on. So that's kind of a ways off. But we've had this agreement for several years now. And we're not going to be spending anywhere near the amount of money that we have been spending. We've got a budget for 60,500. How did you come up with these specific numbers, Mike Sandiger?
On page 2,
Yeah, no, on page 1, the new one.
the new proposed amounts.
Yeah.
Those proposed amounts we had originally started at a 5% increase, and then the Lake Association suggested a 15 and 10% increase.
Part of the issue is that the costs vary from year to year. So some years we may only spend $90,000 out of the 150,000. But the last couple of years, I think we spent over 150. And if you spend under, you're supposed to create a reserve. And so we're thinking that, we've been overspending. We need to increase the total amount to actually build up some reserves. If something special comes up, that we have the extra money to go after it. But that's another reason why they wanted to increase the total. One of the things I think we probably should do is to get really clarity on what the issue and what the problem here is to look at what we spend and what we've spent on each of the lakes, the last 2 or 3 years, and where the funding came from. So, for example, on Bone Lake, I don't know what percent of the funding is covered by the city of Wyoming or Scandia, what percent comes from the Lake Association, et cetera. And then we should probably compare the 3 lakes of not only just the total dollar. Total dollars really don't mean much. It's a question of where the funding's coming from. We're looking at more funding, so maybe that's where we should put our effort on. But I think we should look at that numbers to be actually fair about the whole question. So
Well, why don't-
can I make a formal request then to have staff put that together the last couple of years?
Yeah, why don't we table, this document in front of us? This what did you call it? Tri-entity agreement?
Tri-party agreement.
Tri-party, okay.
Yeah.
Tri-party agreement. Why don't we table this, and then at the next meeting, bring this back on the agenda with that additional comparison information?
And that would be helpful. That would allow us to look at what the comparison is rather than just looking at absolute dollars.
Mhm.
And then you can also look at where the current funding for the watershed district comes from. So what percent comes from the city of Forest Lake in terms of all the properties in that area versus the properties that encompass the watershed for Bone Lake and the watershed for Comfort Lake? And we should also look at that so we get a better understanding of what you want, what path you're going down. Does everybody understand that question also?
Yeah,
Can we get that information, Mike? Is there any way to break out those tax payments by watershed district, by sub-watershed?
county should be able to do that pretty easily.
Yeah, I think there is a way. I mean, the other, I don't know, just looking at the per lot thing, and they're all very, very similar. And we've had bounces over the years, but remember, just a few years ago, we did a big treatment on Comfort Lake. Not too many years prior, we did the copper sulfate treatment on Bone Lake. You know, so there were.
The Comfort Lake, if you're talking about that all lake treatment, that was a grant,
Right.
innovation grant from the
District
DNR,
right.
so,
With the district had a contribution, I mean, and so,
yeah,
so there are
Yeah.
just.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
But we could pull all this together.
Yeah.
I think we could do that, Steve.
At least an estimate. And then, and I think I left out grants. Grants is a very, very important part of the funding, as somebody pointed out. You had that big grant to do that whole lake. So that should be included in part of the funding strategy, obviously, because that's a very important part. And I know the Lake Association, I think this year we got another $8,000 to help defray the cost of the Eurasian Water milfoil.
mhm.
We're paying
Yeah,
for
but
that by
should be-
themselves.
But those funds should be separated out from the levy funds.
Yes, I
That's
agree.
what-
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and you can show those as two different inputs, but very distinct.
But you know, if the Lake Association is working on getting those dollars, it does contribute to the total contribution of dollars available to manage and protect the lake.
Mhm.
And that would be true for the other lake watershed districts also.
Mhm.
Because you got a grant for that milfoil treatment, or not milfoil treatment. A couple years ago, you did the whole lake treatment, and that was by a grant, wasn't it, Manager Anderson?
Yes, it was,
Right.
with contribution, I think it was around 30,000 from the
Right.
district. You know, the other thing that, if we're gonna do this, we have to do it right and make sure that we're putting in all of the proper information for a clear understanding of what we're looking at. We're dealing with a lake that's, 10 times the size of the other two lakes. Bone and Comfort are pretty close, to each other. Even their shape is pretty similar. So it's gonna look so much different. And I know that for a long time, Bone Lake Association was doing their own milfoil treatment before the district started doing it. So I don't know how many years that was, but I do remember that. And was glad that we put the program together and didn't have to rely on those folks for basically double contributions. But they did a heck of a job before we got started. So that type of thing needs to be considered as well. Yes, Mike?
Brad, Madam President, just another thing about all this is, again, just noting, and I was in touch with the Minnesota Lakes and Rivers today about some different topics, but one of these came up again on this particular topic about the revenue streams. I mean, there's a lot of economic impact generated from the lakes, but they're not, the district isn't, it's mostly local taxpayers, right?
Mhm.
Some of it then is the Clean Water Fund, some of it comes from grants from the DNR, but a lot of license fees and other gas tax, everything's like that go into the DNR, and they don't appear to come back in a very I don't say equitable, but in a proportional manner regarding the need that is placed upon the districts to do a lot of this work. So it seems like a lot of that stuff has been pushed down to the districts to do it, and this is part of the mission is to everyone enjoys the fact that the lakes are cleaner and that it's good fisheries and everything like that, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that enjoy it that don't contribute much to the overall cost to maintain it or to increase. So just noting that and trying to still work on some of those pieces, and it might be something the legislative session is coming up in early March, and something that the district might want to take to the association as well as some.
And we're definitely.
Yeah.
We should start a group list for legislative ideas, because they come to us during the year. It doesn't just happen when we're supposed to turn in those documents, but that's pretty much how it's been working. But I would encourage each manager to do that. If something idea hits you that would benefit watersheds in general, jot it down so that we can aggregate all of that into a good legislative platform. But I think we understand, let me just kind of tie it up and reiterate it here, but we're going to table this discussion until next meeting. And with that meeting, will that give you enough time? No? Okay, so next month in
March
March.
12th, right? And then Manager Schmaltz will be back then too, otherwise he won't be attending the next meeting.
Oh, that's right. Yes, let's make it for March. One of
Is
the
that
March
suitable,
meetings.
Manager Schmaltz?
I'll be back March 7th.
Okay.
Right, good.
Well,
And
let's
I
do
think
it.
I think I only missed one meeting, if that's the 26th.
Right, so we'll bring
We've
it
got
back on
conflict.
March.
I can't participate by Zoom because we've got previous engagements down in Florida. So
Mhm.
Right.
So the second meeting in March.
that would be
First
fine,
meeting
sure.
is March 12th.
Oh, well, he said it'd be fine to have it at the end of the month. That gives you more time.
March 12th. will be
Let me
fine.
see what the timing. Let me see what the timing is with Jerry, and I'll write everybody. I'll write Mike and you, Manager Anderson, a note back on what if
Okay.
he has any timing constraints or he sees any issues with that.
Okay, all right.
Madam Chair,
President Anderson?
Can I take Manager Baki first?
yes.
Thank you. Manager Baki, go ahead.
Thank you, Chuck. I don't mean for this to be a competition among the lakes as to who's getting money and who's not getting money. I think this is more about us being prudent in our spending. We have to, yes, we have to deal with what nature throws at us, but we have limited funds. And we just have to be smart about how we're using those dollars. And I like the conversation that I've heard over the past 15 minutes, because I think we're moving in that direction. I think, yes, Bone Lake did treat Eurasian water milfoil. It was paid for by residents around the lake. We worked together as a group and hired the company to come in and do it. And that was how we faced that issue until the watershed district decided to pick up the bill. And since then, the Lake Association has paid nothing for treatment. So, that's why I'm bringing this up, is how are we funding it? And I appreciate, Steve, your comments about getting the data, figuring this out. Where is the money coming from and how can we do this equitably across the district?
I guess
Okay.
I should bring up one more question because Dave, you brought up a good point. What is our policy on Eurasian water milfoil? I thought it was of the issue that we would take care of any, let me think back now. I thought we would take care of any heavy growth and that the local watershed would district would take, if they want to do more than heavy growth, they could do more, but they would have to pay for it themselves. Are we operating that way now, Mike? I can't recall because it sounds like I know the Forest Lake Association spent some 30-some thousand dollars treating milfoil. I don't know whether we made any contribution to that or not.
So the way we are currently working is, the district pays for the delineations of the aquatic AIS plant species. And then Forest Lake is the only lake we've had recent treatments for EWM, and the watershed district covered those, or I mean, the Lake Association paid for those treatments. We don't have anything budgeted currently for EWM treatment itself.
Okay, so we basically have, and I think that's a good suggestion because it can be very, very expensive if EWM gets out of control on the lake. And so I think that's a good policy to start with anyway. So we all know what the rule is then. So thank you.
That hasn't changed, though. I mean, that's been our rule, I think,
Yes.
all along. That's why we got a different grant so that we could treat EWM, and it's been very successful so far, knock on wood. Chuck, sorry for the delay.
No, Madam Chair, I just was going to note that there is a motion on the table, so you would want a motion to postpone the vote on that, and that's
I can withdraw my motion if you'd like me to do that.
it's well,
That's
it would
okay.
be more in accordance with procedure to just have a motion to table. It's just a majority vote and it's non-debatable.
Okay. So does this motion come up then the next time that we discuss this? Because I think, my concern, Chuck, is that Steve's is a positive motion to accept this document. And we want all of this information so that we can make a determination of what we want to do. So it may not be that same positive motion next time that comes out of this discussion. That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
Well, the motion next time could be a motion to bring this tabled motion up again, or it could simply be a motion to bring it up and replace it with a different motion.
Okay, we will follow that process as outlined by our attorney, so this motion will be tabled until March 7th. 12th, March 12th meeting with additional support documentation that was requested here tonight for the managers to review. And do I need that as a motion or just as a statement?
As a motion.
Okay. Will someone make the motion to table, given the guidelines I just gave out? I'll make that motion to table this topic until a future meeting in March. I'll give some leeway on that. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I don't think you can discuss a tabled motion, but anyway, let's go ahead.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Takes,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Okay, let's move on. Next is the education, oh, I'm sorry. I missed. The first one is the 2025 Blue Water Science reports.
Managers and board president, Blue Water Science has provided their report summaries and then presented at the January 22nd, 2026 regular board meeting. The last full report summary was provided the same day, the Flowering Rush for Forest Lake report. The motion would now be to accept the Blue Water Science 2025 survey reports.
Manager Anderson, I will move to accept the Blue Water Sciences 2025 survey reports.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second that. Manager Schmaltz.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Takes,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on, the 2025 Education and Outreach Year-End Report.
Madam Chair and Board, this is just bringing this item back. It was presented in December at the December board meeting. There was discussion on it. There was a pre-recorded video in the draft report, and you opened it up to the board for any comments, and I did not receive any, so we're bringing it back for approval.
Okay, any further discussion on this matter?
President Anderson, I'll make a motion to accept the 2025 Education and Outreach Summary.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you.
And President Anderson,
Yes,
I would like to commend Adam on an excellent offerings in this program. Boy, there's a lot of stuff going on, and he seems to have a good rein on things, especially in the area of social media and the stats. That's always a tricky area, and it seems like things are all curving in the right direction for us. We attended his the Lakes and Loons meeting, and the room was full, and it was exceptional. I was really proud of the work the Watershed is doing there. So hats off to you, Adam.
yes. Well, I echo your statement. It's been just wonderful to attend some of those seminars, especially, and interact with public like that. The topics are all interesting, and I missed the loon in person, but Adam was able to get me a copy of the recording, and so I'm going to share that with the Lake Association, Comfort Lake Association, and try to maintain our loon population on our little lake. There's not as many as there used to be, but we're hoping to keep it, if you will. All right, well, good job, and thank you for the hard work you do.
Good. I have a question, Manager Anderson.
Yes,
Got my
Go
hand
ahead.
up.
Go ahead.
I know you've really increased the number of people coming to these seminars, and I know you have a sign-up sheet. Do you also collect their emails? Or is that something you can do easily, or not? Or just do they just sign in with a name and a city name or something?
Yeah, Manager Schmaltz, it is a little tricky. So for our events that we do 100%, for example, like the Loon and Lakes event the other day, when people register, we do get their emails. If it's a community ed program, the school does the logistics for us on that one. So we get the email, but we're not allowed to use it. But at those events, we have a sign-up sheet. If people are interested, they can put down their name and email address and sign up for our listservs and things like that.
So are you or are we building a list of inventory of names that we can use to outreach with our messages and so forth? I'm just kind of curious if that's enlarging or not.
Yep, it is. That is correct. And then starting last fall, we also have a evaluation form, and we're tracking, are people satisfied with the programming? Do they have recommendations for new programming, as well as do they live in the district or not? So we're tracking a lot of that as well. Some new information coming in.
Thank you.
Any other comments or accolades?
President Anderson, I guess I'd also like to echo the Doug's comments. And I also appreciate the videos. I mean, they are really helpful. It's
Yep.
to watch and not have to read through all the material.
Right.
Okay, I think we're done with that section. Roll call, please.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Next is the 2026 Education and Outreach Implementation Plan.
Madam Chair, so very similar to the last one, the draft report was presented at the December 18th board meeting. And then you opened it up for any board members to comments, questions, things like that. And I did not receive any, so we're bringing it back for approval as well.
I know I brought up that land trust concept at a past meeting. Did you include that in the 2026? I don't think I saw that, but no? Okay.
Specifically, it did not, no.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, we can talk about that at another time. That might be a special meeting once the board gets introduced to it. It's a great program, and it would certainly help us, I think, in not having to work so hard to get people to that point where they can donate some of that open land that we still have, wetlands especially, you want to maintain. So we can talk about that as a separate seminar, maybe. I think that's it. So is there a motion to accept?
President
the
Anderson,
2020
I will
Yeah.
move to accept the 2026 Education and Outreach Implementation Plan.
Wonderful, thank you.
And I'll
Is there a
second that one.
Thank you.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Unanimous. Let's go to the next item, education and outreach events for 2026.
Madam Chair, so it was requested by various board members to come up with a tentative or a draft list of some of our bigger events that we have proposed for 2026. So in your board packet was the larger events, which include the watershed connections that Manager Taves was at the first one. Manager Anderson, you were at the PFAS one. We still have 2 to go in that series. And that was a series that we started last year that was popular, and we're continuing it on. And then included were the informational booths and kind of the speaking events, which included the Lake Association meetings, and then Art in the Park, which is informational booth every Tuesday in the summer at Forest Lake. And then I also included some of the bigger tours, or the tentative dates on those, or the big events, which included the March 30th Bone Lake South informational meeting that we have coming up. The North Shore Trail Nature Area, we're doing a walk and talk event out there. The tentative Comfort Lake delisting, dates are a little flexible on that one yet. And then we have a couple pontoon tours. And then we're doing a walk and talk again out at the Bone Lake South property, like actually at the property. And then the State of the Watershed event. So kind of those bigger events, kind of a tentative schedule. Not looking for approval, just maybe some discussion, questions if managers have anything.
I really like that calendar for the year concept. So everything's on there, and you do a good job of the reminder emails as well, especially the day of or the day before of the events. So I appreciate that outreach that you're doing in communication. So that's fabulous. Okay, well, I'm gonna put all of those on my calendar, so I don't have to miss any of them. But thank you again for the good job that you do, and it's really improved greatly since you've been here, and we're all very proud of that. Thank you.
Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Next item, 2026 rule revision.
Madam President, managers, Mike Sandiger will be leading discussion on Dr. Wilkinson here, but just also wanted to just provide a little, I guess I just want to take ownership of the fact that these things were delayed and being out. Early last week, I communicated with President Anderson about maybe not having this meeting to push it all to the last meeting, and then well, if I know we got this grant dollars for doing some of this work, and so then we tried to push it out and it got delayed, so my apologies to the board. For that, but so this is a bigger topic and it's gonna go on for some amount of time, and thanks for staff kind of quickly turning things around because there was a lot to do in just a couple of days here, so but we're not gonna try to tackle everything tonight, but we'll have Mike and Dr. Wilkerson go over things here.
Thank you, Administrator Kinney, Madam President, board members. So this has been an item that I've done a lot of thinking on. Our partners are very interested in. So I think it's important to recognize, you know, the purpose of our permitting program to protect our water resources, but we also need to balance the need of the community for redevelopment and development. So I put the horse or the cart before the horse. I really wanted to dive right into some of those specific issues, but Administrator Kinney gave some really good suggestions to take a step back and provide the board with an overview of the framework that we're looking at doing, and introduce kind of some of those specific ideas. So in the watershed management plan, it is a goal to review our rules every 10 years. So it's now been 8 years since a major revision. So it's a good time to look at our rules and then update them based on our community needs. Make sure we have the most current science and engineer practices backing up the work, as well as looking at best economic practices. So this presentation is really meant to just be an introduction to this rule revision. We're planning on splitting it into 3 phases, and that would be from this month, February 2026, all the way to May 2027. And based off of our fees rule revision, that may end up being an ambitious timeline, but that is what we're currently looking at. So the first phase would be a rule assessment and gap analysis. This is a really big chunk of time, all the way until October. And really what we would be doing during this period is meeting with our partners, cities, counties, lake associations, other communities members, as well as stakeholders who have gone through our permitting program, and really get feedback from them on how our permitting program is operating, areas that they could see improvements in. So we really do want this to be an iterative process where we really do consider what the community thinks of our program, and shaping it in a way to be successful for everyone. The second phase would be the draft rule revision. That's after we have gone out and met with all the members, public, other partners, and then actually start doing the actual writing of our new rules. It's hard to tell what that will look like. You know, like I said, we really do want to take community input and have that shape what we do. And then the final third step would be the adoption of revised rules. That would be the same process that we went through with the fees rule revision. So it would be publishing the proposed revised rules, having a comment period, allowing chance for members of the public to meet with the board at board meetings, and then finally voting to adopt the proposed rule change. Do we have the presentation available? So we have compiled a list of topics. The list of topics is everything we've heard from either cities, looking at things they would like changed, board member suggestions. There's a lot of staff ideas of possible rule revisions. The district engineer has looked at the list and provided suggestions as well. So the list in the presentation is really just meant to show the board of all of the different things we have heard about our rules and suggestions for changes. Sorry, we'll pull up that presentation shortly. I apologize. What issue? So just a quick overview, rule revisions, goals, that's what I see as staff. Those are the goals staff has suggested for this rule revision. Of course, anything in this, it will be the board's rule revision, so you'll be the driving force behind it. Preliminary timeline, we went over, do a quick touch on the budget. And then we'll kind of show a list of what those proposed topics to consider during the rule revision are. So from staff standpoint, we want to retain the current level of water quality protection afforded by our rules. We want to make sure that we're up to date on standards, research, and practices. We're looking to introduce more flexibility into our rules to ensure the best practice is used when appropriate. And then also looking at ways we can lower costs to the permittee while still providing those comparable benefits. Went through those three main phases: rule assessment, draft revision, and then adoption. So here's kind of a bigger breakdown into how we're picturing kind of the smaller steps in this timeline. Here in February and March, introducing the proposed process, give a chance for the board to provide additional guidance. March to May, start meeting with our partners, counties, cities, state agencies for input. And then we'll move on to stakeholder engagement through a combination of reaching out to former and current permittees about the rule process, and then capping it off with public meetings for stakeholders or members of the public to join. And then we would go into that rule revision process similar to the fees. And then tentatively, the board would vote on the rule revisions of May next year. So this rule revision will take a large amount of staff time. We have 0.2 FTEs allocated in 2026. We'd expect a much smaller amount in 2027 with it going into May. We have 30,000 levy funds available for consulting fees. And then we also did receive a PRAP grant. That's the Performance Review and Assistance Program grant. It cannot be used on the rule revision itself for grant rules, but it would fit nicely in conjunction with just looking at general improvements to the permitting program while we do that gap analysis. So here we'll just jump into a list of comments we've received. Like I said, some of these are board suggestions, some are city suggestions. At this point, we're not advocating for any, we're just trying to introduce the topic to the board. So a lot of the stormwater suggestions are trying to provide flexibility and lower cost practices that provide comparable benefits. one such as the minimal impact design standards. That would allow for, stormwater treatment, using less engineered practices, on larger rural lots. Allowing better flexibility into our stormwater impact fund. Some partners want to see large rural lots exempted from stormwater requirements. Inclusion of water reuse source credits, that's something other districts do. You know, if you have a recapture system, putting that towards our stormwater calcs. Credits for impervious reduction, you know, if you rebuild a building and you end up with less impervious, I'm trying to account for that. Possibly looking at regional specific rules. Simplification of language for better understanding.
And can you explain what you mean by regional rules?
So it'd be similar to what we are looking at for, you know, if you adopted the smaller, I'm sorry, I forget what they were called, the smaller watersheds like just for Forest Lake. So acknowledging that different part of the districts have different characteristics. So looking at, for example, downtown Forest Lake is very developed. It presents its own hurdles to overcome with any permitting that goes on there.
Sub-districts, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. These really complicated engineering ones, I can leave these to Anne. She wrote these out.
Sure. So these are just about providing more clarity with sequencing between different types of feasible BMPs. So we have kind of preferences for infiltration, and then they have to show if that's infeasible, then they can sequence through different types of BMPs. But there's some language that could be more efficient and more easily understood just from how we review the applications and the kind of frequently discussed or frequently corrected.
I like the number 3 in particular, giving that type of instruction on what materials to use is really important.
Exactly.
That's oftentimes not there.
Right. And yeah, so then the other ones are about making those requirements for the standards to be kept up with the best available science, and then require.
I can cover.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say
Go
no,
back to slide. A lot of these stormwater features that are required to be permitted end up held by whoever owns the parcel. So we would prefer to see, or a preferred method could be to require that they're built on public land or the maintenance agreement is held by a public entity. So individual landowners aren't on the hook for expensive BMPs. Some of these are some more city requirements, utility replacement project exemptions, looking at public road exemptions or alternative ways of permitting those. And then developing more explicit expectations for stormwater design, kind of making sure those are built correctly. And then a more rigorous overview throughout the process of our BMPs to make sure they're built correctly and maintained correctly. Just more codifying those practices. So the stormwater really is the big area that we get the most comments on. So I've kind of lumped the rest of these together. Timing on silt fence, make it clear when they need to be there or removed. Maybe looking at more sustainable materials requiring biodegradable erosion control. You know, a lot of these practices are made from plastic.
Make sure you add something in there if that comes down for some reason. You know, animals going toward the water or storms, and the timing in getting it back up again. Make sure you address that.
Yeah, it is something we struggle with compliance.
Mhm.
'Cause, there's a switch in ways wetlands are classified, so switching from the old method to the new method, that's the MRAM to rapid assessment. Looking at, what is current condition, to address encroachment on our buffers. Clarity on water crossing, just making sure that rule is, more understandable. And then also, looking at maybe new rules that the district wants to implement, a chloride management. Looking at how we treat solar panels, whether we want to regulate shoreline work. And then also looking at how ice heaps are handled as well. And then just some miscellaneous items, updating the atlas, that's the rainfall model. And then something else is, removing, city variances from our rules and adopting standardized criteria. Because that can be a confusing process for the permittee. Is the end of the presentation. It's a lot of information. We acknowledge that we're really looking to introduce the topic, and get our board members to start thinking about what direction you'd like to see this go. And then as well, we did have a scope of work included from EOR, and then Chuck included a document. It's called and then Chuck also included what's your term, Chuck?
Memorandum.
There was a cool word for it, the SONAR, Statement of Need and Reasonability. Which is kind of lays down the framework for why we need to do a rule revision, or what the purpose of the rule revision is. So with that, open for any questions from the board.
Board, any questions, comments?
No questions here.
I think that statement about working with the DNR. I don't remember exactly what the word was, but I think it's very important. Personally, because there's always that conflict with what the DNR is telling people they can do or permitting. Based against what we're trying to do, especially in restoring and protecting natural shorelines. And I want you to put down in your discussion whether it would make sense for us to enter into an agreement with the DNR to be that, take their role. Some watersheds do that, and it just seems to me to be a much clearer way to do it. People only have to go to one entity for that permit, then they don't have to go to the DNR. We don't have conflicting information going out to landowners. So if you would put that down for discussion.
I can do that with the president. I'll have that now.
Thank you. Well, if we don't have any questions, we can move on. We don't have to belabor this. This is gonna take a long time.
I'm sorry,
to
I
get
was
through.
I was muted, so I have a question, Manager Anderson, a couple.
Yes, go ahead, Manager.
First of all, I'm really glad to see the outline that Mike put together, because those of us that were around when we did the 10-year plan and we did the 10-year plan, which took over 2 years to do, having that outline and step by step of who we're going to meet with who and when we did it, et cetera, was a very educational and very efficient way to do it. And this is just as complicated. So we need to have a nice system that pulls everybody in and gets everybody involved in the whole thing. So we've got that outline. It's going to force us to do that. So that's really a good step in the right direction for having a successful program. The second comment is kind of piggybacking on what Manager Anderson said, but from a different perspective. we got to step back. We can get lost in the individual rules and all that, but we got to step back. And the goal here is to make sure when we're all done working with our partners that we have things that are easier for people to work with, but overall things get better for the quality of water that we have. And what I'm talking about here is you saw a long list of 4 or 5 things the city would like us to deviate from and compromise on. And all I'm saying is that's probably a good trade-off. But if we're going to trade something off, we should get something back for the lake and for the waters. For example, we're criticized by the city because we have too many rules and we enforce them. So our criticism of the city is that they've got all these rules for shorelines and tree preservation, and they don't enforce them, right? So there's a dichotomy that we've got to compromise on, I think. Much like taking over some of the stuff from the DNR. Should we be pushing in that direction? And if so, we need to have a well-articulated strategy and plan for doing this so we don't alienate people and then we can move smoothly forward and make some accomplishments and goals. So that's what I would like to see us think about in terms of we're going to give up utility stuff and road stuff and that for the city, we should get something back from the city as it relates to shoreline. The best example is right now the city has an impervious rule of 25%. If I want to move my garage and attach it to my house, I've got to make sure my impervious in my house meets the requirements, 25%, which helps the lake. Big help to the lake. Why can't we have shoreline requirements at the same time? And if they don't want to enforce them, do we want to take that on? That's probably a big internal discussion we have to have. And so I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that bigger picture situation that Manager Anderson referenced with the DNR, but we're referencing with the city, which is our main opportunity to improve things around here as it relates to shoreline. And as we said before, Forest Lake has got a big shoreline problem. And so we need some help besides begging people to do this. That's all I have for it. I hope we can maybe work that in some way.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. And I have talked to others about that as well. Going back to the beginning of the watershed, there was a lot more collaboration going on, and that was a request by all of our communities was to take over the shoreland zone responsibility. And of course, we were brand new and didn't have staff and all of that. We weren't ready for that, but we are now, and I think that makes perfect sense. Those are always tricky and difficult decisions to make. And when you don't have that expertise behind you, that's where the expertise and technical knowledge of the watershed comes in. So 100% agree that should be a long-range goal of ours to incorporate all of that responsibility into the watershed.
And if we can get the DNR to help us also, that would be a nice tri-party system, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you suggested, Manager Anderson, I get a good suggestion. Because it is complicated. Everybody has a little piece of the pie and it never does come together.
Right. Okay, nice job. This is well thought out and we know the road ahead of us, so that's good. We'll look forward to the updates. And the
President
workshops.
Anderson,
Yes.
if I may comment. Mike, this is a really comprehensive plan. I like the 3-step process you've got here in engaging all stakeholders. I especially like the aspect of talking to people who've been through the permitting process and getting their feedback. I think that's something that can really be valuable. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? No, we'll move on. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. Next item is Clean Water Partnership Loan E.
And President, managers, after the last meeting, President Manager called me and had some questions on this topic that the board had previously discussed. And so after that discussion, we decided to bring it back for some additional discussion with the board. And I'll let Brad's been working on the memo and the documents along with Emily, but I'll let Brad explain where we're at here.
And Madam President and members of the board. As you recall, the 2026 budget called for a loan in the amount of $234,000 to balance budget. This was agreed upon, and it's coming back up for discussion, because the maximum loan amount available for the Clean Water Partnership loan is $750,000. The board, if chooses to do so, could apply for a loan in that amount up to $750,000. Benefit to this was it would minimize the associated legal costs for any future loans that would possibly be required depending on business needs at a later date. And that amount would be to be determined. Basically, in that event, if that became a necessity or a discussion point, staff would provide a detailed budget analysis and a revised budget scenario with a future projected loan repayments, and a complete analysis prior to taking any action that would increase the amount that was previously discussed. But we wanted to bring this back to your attention for discussion on that matter, on the amount that we'd like to.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what you said at the beginning, and that is that if we were not to do this additional at this time, we would have to pay $2,500 to get it in the future. We are so tight. We have zero contingency funds. And to me, this seems like a really good solution. If we were to incur some unexpected costs, which is what of course got us to this situation first place, it's kind of like I think Jim said it last meeting, but a revolving credit line, a credit card, whatever you can use to put this in perspective. The intention is not to take any more than what we budgeted for. But if we have a crisis, we have no way to take care of it. And so this would provide us with that breathing room and reassurance that we're at least going to be able to use some funds if we need them. And that would be a decision, obviously, that would be made with the board. A lot of consideration, and there would have to be a deep explanation. It's not to add a project, it's to provide a cushion if we need it. So that's really it. It's providing that cushion, that breathing room, if you will, so that we don't have to get so anxious about a crisis and what are we going to do? We can't go to the bank for that kind of thing. That money is typically for projects, hard projects, so there's got to be a result somewhere that's visible and long lasting. So we can't do that. This is about the only way to do it. And we've checked out other methods too in the past, but this seems to be the best way to do it. Doesn't cost us anything. There'll be engagements around it, so restrictions around it. As I said, it's not going to be something that is just done by the staff. It's something that will have to come to the board, and all the details will be, if we need it, will have to be laid out, and they'll make a decision at that time.
President Anderson?
Yes, Manager Baki.
I have a little bit different perspective on this.
Okay.
When we voted for this $234,000 amount, we were very clear about this was to meet our budget needs. It was something we did reluctantly, going into further debt. And to open the door to go back and get more money to go further in debt, I think there is another alternative. The other alternative, rather than going into more debt, is to look at where we can make some budget cuts. And that's something we need to think about seriously if we're going to open this door to increasing our debt. If we have to, maybe we don't. Maybe we look at what do we have to do to make our ends meet rather than taking out additional loans.
I agree with that philosophy, Manager Baki. And we probably should begin to think about certain projects that, or whatever we might do to close any gaps that develop. It comes down to thinking like, well, are we going to treat AIS in this lake over here because we got a big explosion of problem, or do we pay for that by not finishing up the South Bone Lake Park investment we're making this year or next year? So those are the kind of the decisions we're going to have to make, because nothing's in our budget that's not important right now. So I think that's one thing to look at. But on the other hand, I think we need 234,000. At least we want to have this as a cushion. As I understand it, if we don't use the rest of the loan, we don't pay for it. Is that correct, Brad?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the second point I want to clarify is that you've got a final payment schedule here that shows making 2 payments a year. That's just an example, I suspect, because we may want to use the 234,000 this year. So it might be 2 payments for 234,000. So that's just an example of how it would be done.
Yes, that's just an example of a payment
Okay.
schedule. Yes, that is not the actual amount.
So it could be 120,000 the first 6 months, 120,000 the second 6 months.
No,
Did we get an example? I don't remember seeing an example.
There was an additional attachment on there that not having to be on there, but it's an example of a loan repayment schedule and how it would work.
right, but it's for a larger amount.
It's for a larger amount.
Did we
so-
all get that?
Madam President,
I
It
don't,
was
yeah,
attached
it's just
online.
some of the attached.
it's online,
It's
online,
on the online.
so I have to go online for this?
Yes.
See it? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. all right.
The repayment is such that it's a 10-year repayment. So the 234 is gonna be whatever that is. Right, that's into.
Do we pay that over 10 years then, or 20 years then?
7. Since 7?
It's over a 10-year, or excuse me, it's a 7-year loan originally,
Yeah,
with an option to extend in the future if necessary.
to 10,
To 10.
just as what we did with the other one, yeah,
Exactly. But
yeah.
originally it'll be a 7-year loan at 1.1%.
yeah.
So we have a 20-year table here, so which is kind of confusing too. So maybe we want to put that into a 7-year format. I don't know. But I just wanted to make sure we weren't tied into that kind of schedule.
Well, 2 payments a year,
it's
that's why there's 20 payments, it's a 10-year schedule. And that's for starting out at the full amount.
Of
Under the
750.
current 234, it'd be 23,400 or something a year, or excuse me, once we start, and that's after.
Yeah, this attachment is not correct. It's for loan D. It's not intended upon that. So this is a good example of how the loan repayment schedule
Mhm.
works.
Mhm.
These are not the correct numbers.
Okay,
So I agree with what Manager Baki's saying, but I also agree with Manager Anderson's question. It would be foolish for us to only take out 234,000, because if we needed more, it's going to cost us a lot more to take out another 250 or another 250. And hopefully we won't need it because we can set priorities. But if we do, we want to have the ability to be able to get at it without spending more money, right? And that's kind of the purpose of this change from what we talked about last time. So
Right.
But if I can rebut
it's
that,
a good
Steve,
catch. So
my point is that we don't take out more loans. That's
Right.
the point. We're taking out $234,000 that we voted to do that, thinking that this would meet our needs. And if it doesn't, then we have an alternative. We have to look at what are we going to cut? And I just am not in favor of taking out more loans and opening the door to that possibility. I'm saying, let's close the door. This is it.
So if that's the case, in order to facilitate discussion on this, because if something comes up, we may only have 2 meetings to make a decision. And so I would suggest that maybe staff set some priorities or a schedule of what's the most important thing we're working on and what's the least important thing we're working on. And so we have at least some guidelines for the board to look at that and start talking about it. You know, it's easy to give away somebody else's money when it's not working on Bone Lake or it's not going to affect Forest Lake. I'm willing to give it up, right? We all are. So that's why we need a list of things that we can look at as a board and decide how we're gonna decide if something has to be cut.
Right,
That's
these
a
would be
suggestion.
very difficult decisions, absolutely,
Right.
and we don't want to go there. But again, I don't think we should be in a position where we're taking out more loans or even putting ourselves in that position where we would say, oh yeah, this is an option. We'll just take out more loans rather than facing the current budget that we have.
Well, it's not as willy-nilly as you make it sound. This is a precautionary position only. And none of us want to take out more loans. I don't even want to take out 234,000, to be honest with you. But if we get, we got ourselves into this, honestly, by not budgeting properly over the last 6 years. And that's why we're here. And so, if we have to shut down the operation or cut it in half or whatever, that's not a good position to be in either. And it doesn't send out a good signal to the community. And we don't need to do it. We just don't need to do it. So with all the drama around not having taxes and all of that crap, that's fine. But if you want to run an operation, you're going to have to fund it properly. We're not funded properly right now. This provides that mental confidence that if we do have a unusual issue that comes up, that we have a way to solve it. So we don't have to lay people off, or we don't have to shut the doors, or, you know, whatever scenario happens. So I think it's a very good precautionary financial decision to have that type of security if it's needed. So I have a completely different position on that, and I would suggest that rather than put what priority we have for a project, is to look at our cash flow for the 6 months that gets us through June, so that we have adequate funds, that we know we're going to have adequate funds to meet our bills in that 6-month period. Our first check comes from the county in July. And that's usually around 900,000. So we should be in good shape for that next 6 months, but it's always this first 6 that's problematic.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we should probably at every meeting at the end of the month, we should have staff look at where we are, not only cash flow, but just expense wise, our spending against budget. And if we're over, and if that's the same thing.
Flow, Steve.
Right.
Yeah, that is cash flow.
Right. I know. I'm just saying, but it's got to be down to the specific projects in many cases. So, so I think I'm saying the same thing, but I'm trying to do it on a monthly basis.
Yeah, it's not projects. Projects are paid with grants, or we don't do them. The problem is making sure that we're not paying for things that we shouldn't be paying. All of that preliminary work that we've been paying for in the past, you know, that's over the last, I think calculated this out, I think it was the last 7 years. That's about equal to the amount of debt that we have right now. We were paying for that 20% or 10% that we should be able to cover with another grant or with in-kind work from our staff. So we've got a person with a financial background here that worked with that type of accounting before, and so we'll be able to see if that 10% actually was applied properly. That's what I think is maybe the problem on the books, is that it wasn't applied properly. And so we've got some things that we're trying to figure out and clean up, if you will, in the past, but But that, if it wasn't done correctly, then that is why the books are kind of out of balance on our grants.
President Anderson,
Yes,
is Ted Hansen there?
he's right here.
Yep.
Could we allow him to speak to this issue as he is a member of the CAC?
Yes, well, he's
I'd like
also
to hear
an
his
accountant.
opinion.
He's also an accountant,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
well, Manager Baki, I kind of agree with you, that we approved a budget. With a lot of discussion around that budget. And when I look at this organization, we are a project management organization. And we need to prioritize, all of our projects should be prioritized, that if something's going way over, that either we do something if we're going over, or we gotta cut something else out. You know, and that's always looking at our project. So to me, taking on this additional money here is, you know, above and beyond the budget that we just approved in December. So, you know, sitting here now, I'm kind of going, whoa. It looks like we're recreating the budget, you know, 60 days into it. You know, that's what it looks like from my perspective.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah, there's a cushion, but I think we need to have, if things start going south on something, we gotta know what we can pull.
can I give a point of clarification?
Yeah.
So by not taking this action at this time, it does not close the door to getting another loan in the future. It's simply prudent to do an extended amount in case the unplanned for or any kind of unanticipated budgetary needs come up that are outside of the budget, that many times in organizations like this, we don't see coming, or it can happen. It's simply more prudent to do it at this time because you save the extra costs of generating another loan. So, and I believe the intent is not to take out an amount that would be used as a cushion. It's simply available there and will not be drawn upon without a full financial analysis done on the exact scenario and what you would need and why you would need it. And that would come to the board for extensive discussion prior to another drawing happening above that $234,000. As an organization, we feel very strongly as a staff, but that's what we would need to provide for work in order for something like that to take place. So, just a point of clarification,
And President Managers, yeah, just a couple of pieces of additional information. When we first started taking out the loans, the state revolving fund had roughly 20 million available statewide to different entities. Currently, there's 3 million. That's why when we first started, they were like, sure, take out we had I don't know, not necessarily an allocation, but we had gone through and said, okay, it's a total of 5 million. Now they limit that to 750. Because there's we started telling people this was available and other entities started using it as well from that perspective. So and then you would have 3 years to access those loan dollars at line of credit. Plus you request an extension for a 4th year. So so that's why we just not sure if that all that information was provided in the first meeting, but obviously this is a board level decision.
Well, it was originally at 0 interest. 10-year payback.
Correct.
So. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay, I think we've all expressed a lot of thoughts on this, and I think we've moved ahead again, inching our way forward to getting to a closer position on this. And if we start looking at it, as Manager Anderson said, on a 6-month and then on each monthly treasurer's report, we can take a look at where we're at. So can we move on? Is everybody happy with what we've done so far?
Was there a motion formulated for this, or was this just discussion tonight?
Well, I guess maybe we're,
You didn't formulate one, did you? I can't
No,
find
I
my,
think there was
here
a,
it is. I don't have it up on the screen. Okay, this was just for discussion tonight.
well, don't
So,
we
So
have to
President
apply?
Anderson,
yes,
so this is not, my understanding is we're applying for the loan, is that correct? In the amount of 234,000, is that correct?
well, we don't need to. I think the request was to do a cash flow analysis for the first 6 months. And knowing what our revenue in is, there's, not much that comes in the 6 months. What always concerns me is the big invoices for the projects that were done the previous year always seem to come in first quarter. Beginning of second quarter. So you've got these big hits beyond your normal routine overhead that you have to adjust for.
well, bigger projects typically then are grant funded though as well, so,
Be.
so yes, but.
Let me ask a
Well,
question.
just-
Brad, have we applied for the loan yet, or are we in the process of applying for it?
We are in the process of applying for it.
And
Okay.
when is the
Yeah.
deadline? What is the deadline for closing that request?
Ongoing, there's no deadline.
No deadline. Okay.
Mhm.
So we're not,
Yeah,
well, I think what we're
approved it.
saying is what we'd like to request 750. But we don't have to use the 750, but otherwise, if we go for 234 and we need another 50,000, it's going to cost us $2,500 to do the paperwork to get that extra money. And so this is almost like a program for profit to control our future costs. And it's a lot cheaper than going to the bank or looking at other alternatives we've already looked at. So we're trying to minimize our future costs on having money available. So including the 234,000.
Yeah,
That is understood, but I think we need to have board approval if we're applying for 750,000 rather
Right.
than the 234,000. Because I'm not in favor of applying for anything over 234,000. If we were to need more money beyond that, I would vote no. And we'd have to look at how we can balance our budget. That's my point.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we're going to apply for $750,000 as discussed before. And that we also follow the cash flow analysis that we were going to be doing here to make sure we control the situation.
yeah.
So
I'll
that's my
second
motion.
that. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Nay.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. Motion carries 3-1.
You haven't lost, Dave, because your point was well taken, and I think you've moved the
Yeah.
board quite a bit. So it's not about winning or losing. It's about getting us, nudging us one way or the other, but in the right direction. And I think we're going in that right direction, as you pointed out. So,
Yeah. Well, I do too. And again, that's not the objective. It's not to go out there and spend the 750.
right.
It's a protection device only. So, well, thank you, for that. I think that's gonna calm things down a bit as far as, the worry goes, where we're at, but, I look forward to those reports that you're going to provide for us and they're important. All right, thank you. Next, program and project update.
Madam President, managers, just kind of quickly, we're looking to finalize the documents to get the Iron and Sand Filter Project at Heath Avenue, Little Comfort Lake. Maybe back to some next meeting or the first one in March.
I think Emily has the most up-to-date board meeting schedule for that, but the 90% is complete and the project manual is underway, so.
We're tracking toward the March 12th meeting.
Okay, so They'll come back, or come for, to let the bid out, so. We're just working on the schedule also, the district will be eligible for, or has received a grant through EPA, and Emily's informed me earlier today that, so while it's an October 1st fiscal year, budget, the grant agreement needs to be executed around the first of the year, and then, we can use, depending on how the bids come in, use the balance, or use that grant for the balance as the federal, so rather than the district matching dollars, so, so then, yeah, just a couple other items here that the board is aware of. We close out the Moody Lake project grants there. There's work to be done on the feasibility for the Bone Lake South piece, and
Say, could we move the screens, Mike?
Oh,
oh,
oh, no, sorry, that's just a picture. Move screens,
so the power, yeah, I think he's looking for the PowerPoint,
yeah.
so.
Here, I've got it up already.
So,
Ah, that's better. Thank you.
right, so. In the, we highlighted what phase the project's in, so, said this one would be coming back for bid. We let the bid out, March. And let's go back to it. The Moody Lake Agriculture BMP's, projects is that, one is, or well, excuse me, let's, I just skipped the green infrastructure project. Staff has been working to develop an alternate project on that one from where it originally was, and we've got an approval from that. And continue to evaluate what that project would look like. So Moody Ag 1 is being closed out. So that included some of the project we had around the Moody round barn and such, so.
What, can you go back to that greenway for just a minute, that picture? Is that,
The green infrastructure.
yeah, what is that going to be?
So we did an application for, it was a one-time grant that came through, and Emily had been kind of on top of these, and so we did an application for well, it's a green infrastructure, and so it's a stormwater wetland basin. We had different property in line, or that we had originally identified, and the landowners were decided after talking with their kids, they didn't want to have the project on the property any longer, or part with the sell it or easement or something.
That's on Forest Lake, correct?
That's no, Comfort Lake.
Comfort,
It's right down from your house.
yeah. I'm curious,
It's in your backyard.
no kidding.
Front yard, no.
Front yard. Well, they said the front yard's on the lakeside. That's what they told me when I moved up here.
That's what
So
I
you
heard.
hang your laundry on the garage side by the street.
So what property is that? Exactly.
I don't know if I have a specific,
There's still some wetlands around there. I mean, are you doing
Right.
that? Bogs, you know, we have. some
no,
of
I
those
think
still.
it's,
Can we do this offline, perhaps?
Yeah, we can do it offline, but.
And we only got, I'm
It'd
trying to
be
protect
nice
your
to know
record
where
of
the-
4 meetings on time in a row.
What's that?
I'm trying to protect your record of 4 meetings on time in a row. So we have,
There's more
10
than
minutes.
that. I did a better job last year of that than you did.
sounds like somebody needs a trophy.
Yeah. Just don't make it gold. Okay.
Yeah,
so
Blaine would have more.
You can-
the
you can
specific
show me
Cameron,
that.
Victoria.
You can show me that afterwards. Okay,
So,
what else? Anything else?
not really, just other things that we've been talking about, Bone Lake South Nature area. We're working on developing a management plan for that. Progress continues, so put some signage out and communicating with landowners. The Lake Association staff went out there last week to talk to them, but so then school lake ag BMPs, we are kind of in the same boat. We're trying to wrap up that grant. The landowner's done some of the work that we've had hoped for, a couple important pieces. And we may switch some funding to a different property that has been identified and or in conversation with, so.
Is that it? You done?
The only other thing on this is that the Bowser announced just yesterday, Clean Water Fund competitive grants has been announced. We were expecting it early March, so available now, and then the deadline, Emily, is March 26th, I believe. And so we have 3 tentative things that we're looking to apply for. And we'll bring a memo for that as we get closer.
All right, thank you for that update. Next is a report of managers. I'll start with Manager Taves.
The aerator is going in the lake and we have open water already, so we're waiting for the swans to come back and visit. They've been by twice in the last 2 days and we're just waiting for them to settle down now. The other thing is there's the folks that we've talked to are very excited about the South Bone Lake walking trails. So I'm very anxious to see that the plans as those come together.
Very good. Manager Baki?
Yes, on February 3rd, the Bone Lake Association had their meeting, and I was pleased to see Blaine was there, and so was Jackie B. Jackie B discussed the permitting process and what was going on in the area relating to permits, and Blaine shared information regarding the Bone Lake South property. I really am impressed by the quality of the employees we have. They do such a great job of really sharing important, pertinent information and answering questions. I mean, they stayed for over an hour and a half on an evening when they could be home with their families. And I just really appreciate when they come to our association meetings because it really builds a lot of trust and a lot of support for our watershed district.
Well said, Dave. Thank you.
Yes, very nice. Manager Smalls?
Yes. I was at a Forest Lake Association board meeting here on Thursday, and a topic came up that I wasn't familiar with. It was something about, and they weren't clear what it was either, but I think the Watershed District was asking the Forest Lake Association to support potential project requests for our shoreline projects. I've never heard anything about what was going on in this. Adam, are you here? Aiden's not even here. So, Adam, were you involved in this, or how did that get to the Lake Association? And do you know anything about that?
Manager Smalls, I know of it, but not enough details to explain it. It is definitely an Aiden thing, and I know he shot out some emails to Jerry Grutner and to Ken about it.
Yeah, that's got to go through us because I was at the meeting and I had no clue what was even going on. So I would just, if you could just have Aiden or somebody send me that information so we can look at it. They were confused about it and I didn't know enough about it to even answer. So it was kind of a tough situation. So, okay, at least we know where it came from and let's take a look at it again and find out what we're trying to accomplish and maybe what the best way to do that is. That was the first thing. The second thing is that I want to formalize a request. I think when we have a treasurer's report each month, maybe we should have treasurer's report and cash flow report. So we can actually have a formal recognition of where we are that month against the 6-month total that we're trying to make. And that would be very important. The other thing is I think to keep this accurate, everybody has to know where their projects are. So EOR can't be sitting on a lot of billings that haven't come in and are going to come in here in March or something like that. We got to be communicating where we're spending our money and what's going to be coming down the path, as Manager Anderson pointed out before. And that's for our own staff too. Blaine and everybody else has to be on top of these things. So if we can all keep track of what's going on, we can manage the situation a lot better. So I would like to see those 2 things formalized at each of our meetings if the board agrees. So I'm kind of asking for board approval of that request.
I agree.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Ditto.
Yeah, I think we talked about that here just a few minutes ago and agreed, so.
I just
we dou-
wanted to-
We double agree.
Okay. Okay, good. So the third thing I wanted to mention, I just, on the way over here, I saw a note from Mike about a ditch digging out by the city. What lake was that coming from, Mike? It was going into Second Lake, I know.
From Shields.
Shields, that's right. I looked at those pictures. It looks to me like there's a lot of loose ground land there. So it comes springtime, that's all going to end up in Forest Lake, unless I misreading the picture. So anyway, I think that requires some more. I know you're looking at it. It looks like there's a lot of riprap on the left-hand side. We shouldn't have any of that dirt in front of the riprap. The stream should have been dug out further, and all that dirt should have been put up on the hill. But anyway, I think
Yeah, that's what the permit calls for, but for some reason they didn't do it, and now it's gonna get soft, and they probably won't be able to get it out of there, so.
well, I mean, if it gets into the lake, it's going to be a problem. I mean, we already got a bunch of shallow stuff in that area now. It's going to close off even getting into the stream. There's a lot of dirt there.
I followed up with the city, and see what their plans are. Next step might be requiring them to somehow to try to temporarily stabilize it if the ground's too soft to get equipment back there.
Well, maybe they should put fabric down and riprap where the stream is
Yeah.
today, and rather than 20 feet to the left where it is today. If they can't move that dirt, then they should move the riprap in front of it to protect the water from getting into the dirt. That's my thought.
We could certainly require them to put down sediment and erosion control practices.
We can't show them. You should show the board the picture if you got it, because it's pretty dramatic. It's almost scary. Do you have that picture there, Mike?
Yeah, staff
We'll get it up in a second.
will hold up here, but.
Yeah, go on and we can show it later. I don't want to hold up the meeting anymore. Everyone wants to get out of here, so.
Right, but just.
Go ahead and we'll just let's take a look at the picture, but.
Madam President, managers, it does bring up several items. That'll bring, just in the last couple of days. And Madam President, you were gonna have Mr. Holman address that one piece, or should we bring something to the board, next board meeting?
At the legislature, you mean?
Well, that group that's sensible, develop sensible land use, right, yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna talk about it here in a minute.
Okay, but there's that, and then, last week also, we were contacted by, legislative staff for Senator Cran, to meet about the Liberty Ponds. Just want the board to, this is kind of what comes up, right? So these are, the private developer has vacated the premise, and the residents have a failed, community septic system that's apparently discharging into the road, the ditches and elsewhere. And so they have they have an order, and they're looking to the district to help fix it or somehow be involved and support. So yeah, these are the things that we keep finding ourselves involved with.
Well, that was told to me by the administrator for Chisago County last fall. I think that's the first time I talked to you about it. There wasn't anything, the city of Forest Lake didn't want to obviously have anything going into their system at that time. And they couldn't hook up that way. The city of Wyoming, there's no way for them to actually efficiently connect to that group because it's on the other side of town. It's too far away. So the county, when I was approached and what I gave you the information last fall, I don't know if that's gotten to you in writing, but they want us to do the technical part of doing what needs to be done to fix it. We don't pay for that. There's some grant dollars that the county has set aside for that. So that means our time needs to be, our staff time, our engineers' time needs to be tracked. So that will all be paid for. But that's directly across the street from Little Comfort. So it would have double impact, of course, to both lakes if we don't solve that problem. And I'm looking forward actually to the watershed having control of it. Because I don't know what experience you folks have at EOR with those type of community systems, but I'm sure that you've had them in the past. And so we've got experts that can take charge of it and do a great job and solve the problem for both the people that live there and also our lakes. So I think in the long run, it's going to take, time, obviously, from EOR and the staff, but EOR will be leading on that and their money, their payment, that whole project will be paid for by the county. So keep that in mind too. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. I have some quick things here. Speaking of the excitement about Bone Lake and the project, the property that we just acquired, there was a couple from Bone Lake at the seminar that I attended was it earlier this week, I think, and they were so excited. I'm sure he would have hugged me if he wasn't so timid, but this guy was, he came up to me and just almost tears in his eye. He was so happy about this project and what it's going to mean to have that open space, untouched, right there in their neighborhood. His house apparently is very close to that property. And so, he just could hardly contain himself. It was really, really pleasurable to see that kind of reaction. And how happy they are that the watershed is in their area and we're doing this good work for them. So I thought you all should hear about that. It was great. We've had other comments on that this night and it just is really wonderful to see that word of mouth and that response that we're getting. The other thing is I just found out today that the convene meeting for the Lower St. Croix area is going to be on March 24th. I had mentioned a couple of grants that I hope that we can get at least the proposals together for that convene meeting, so we can ask for money before the pool gets distributed to the whole watershed of Lower St. Croix, one watershed, one plan group. So last time I talked to Emily, she had a good handle on what things I thought would be good, but I'm really looking for input from staff on what they think would be something that we could do. So we have until March 24th. That's the meeting date. So hopefully a few days before that, we can sit down and you can go over that with me before I go to that meeting. The last thing is something I want Chuck to explain. There was something that came to Mike that he shared with us, and it's a group of business people apparently are once again trying to get watersheds out of the picture for work in particular. I think it's in the metro area, but they want all responsibility for permitting to be with the cities and not have the watersheds involved.
Stormwater permitting.
Stormwater permitting, yeah, right. Surface water, yeah. So Chuck, I'm gonna throw it to you because I think you have a better handle on this. Your firm gets involved in the legislative issues, so could you please explain that to the group?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll try to be quick. Well, the group is the Sensible Land.
Steve went too long on his time. Go ahead.
We've already gone over 8:30, so I fear, well, at least I won't be responsible for
That's right. You
your
won't.
record falling. But perhaps that means there's really no time limit on my comments. But the group is the Sensible Land Use Coalition. It's a nonprofit organization. It's been around for a while, and it's developers. It's also people who do or have worked in land use and development for cities as city staff, as well as others, engineers and so forth, who are active in that field. And it's thought of as kind of a place for there to be conversation from a lot of different sides on matters relating to development. It happens that in October they had an event focused around what they refer to as housing affordability, which is a term that carries a tone of providing housing for that is at a price that's affordable for folks of perhaps lesser means. But what they are focusing on is simply what they see as things that unnecessarily drive up the cost of house building. And from their event, they produced a white paper, which was put out. It was completed at the end of December. It's not very long. It's 13 pages, I think. And it identifies 16 items that they would like to work on in this regard. The vast majority of them have to do with the city or the entitlement process for development by the land use authority, whether it's the cities or counties. But there are a couple of items in there that pertain to watershed districts, and chiefly there's one that concerns their perception of duplication, complexities, and conflicting requirements as between city wetland and stormwater regulation and watershed districts regulation in those areas. And the solution that they have expressed favor for is that cities should be responsible for these things, and watershed districts may have advisory roles but should not regulate. It's not a deep analysis. The particular discussion on this issue is less than a page. There's no data about costs, or there's no examples or case studies or specifics. And there are some rationales for why cities are better situated than watershed districts, but there's not really reasoning. So it's just something sitting there. It's on the face of it, it's not really well grounded to my mind, because wetland regulation is quite different from stormwater regulation. Wetland regulation is under the State Wetland Conservation Act, and it avoids duplication. Stormwater regulation, cities and watershed districts both regulate, but as you may recall, there is a mechanism in the metropolitan planning statutes to avoid duplication, where the watershed district sets standards, and then the cities can meet those standards with their ordinances, and the watershed district then can bow out of regulating and kind of oversee or audit what the city's doing. Anyway, it's just something that's out there. It's for your radar. Minnesota Watersheds is aware of it. We've talked with Jan Voigt about it, and the legislative folks there are aware of it. I think right now they're not seeing a need for an overly forward strategy, but they're monitoring it. And it's just something to be on the radar. And it ties back to the rulemaking project that was discussed earlier this evening. And of course, it's always a part of our regulatory effort to seek to achieve our goals without unnecessary cost or duplication or complication, and to work with our cities and so forth. So it may bear on that, but for now, it's just a matter of making you aware of it, and we'll keep you apprised.
Good, thank you for that. This was quite a big issue about 5, 6 years ago. And it was a very aggressive individual that does a lot of development in this area and in the East Metro, actually. It came, we were worried as an organization that they were coming close to making some type of change, but fortunately that blew over, and yet it's appearing again. So it's something that we as a watershed community have to be following carefully. But thank you, Chuck. We'll keep you posted if you want information. Contact Mike Kenny and he can send out whatever documents were sent. I haven't seen anything. I just got the word that it was happening. So appreciate that update. One last thing that I would like to have done is, and I'd like EOR to do it, quite frankly. I found some mistakes in information that was on this flyer. I think it was from back in the September when we had our State of the Watershed meeting. And it's about water quality trends in our lakes. And I particularly, of course, saw the numbers for Big and Little Comfort, and the beginning numbers are not right. And so I'm going to give this to you and have you look at the documents. I went back as Tori to find that first report on Comfort Lake from 1997, I think, or 8. And our phosphorus count was 60 parts per billion. And that document says that it was, I think was it 32? It's basically the state standard. So something got mixed up. The problem with that, of course, is that if the public looks at that and sees that as the beginning number, that's the state standard. So there would have been no reason to start the watershed if that is accurate, which it isn't. So we need to clean that up and make sure that when we are giving numbers to the public, we really should have the superintendent of all of our technical projects and information look at it to make sure that we are pulling the right information. Thank you for that. Next and lastly, we have the review of our comments. What do we call that?
Madam Chair, managers.
Summary of board direction, yes.
I have a little list of items here. The Forest Lake Aquatic Invasives Agreement will hereafter be the tri-party agreement. For the discussion of that agreement, staff will provide an analysis of how funding has been applied to each of the lakes and the statistics on that. With respect to the rule revision, Manager Anderson asked that it address clarifying timing to repair erosion control practices, and that we include on the agenda coordination or agreement with DNR regarding permitting on shoreline matters. And then Manager Schmaltz asked that Aiden provide information on the staff request to the Lake Association regarding a shoreline project. Treasurer's report will include a cash flow report each month. And then Mr. Saniger will take appropriate steps with respect to the dirt heading towards Shields Lake. And then finally, Manager Anderson has asked that EOR look at the water quality report for Little Comfort and some errors that may be there.
Okay, any changes or additions from members? Nope. Okay, we are done with our.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I was muted. I was muted. So I do have one other suggestion. Manager Anderson asked about the DNR coordination. I had the same request for the city. trying to coordinate with the city on their shoreline requirements and our giving up some of our rules and regulations.
Actually, it was to take over that role.
Well, possibly, yes, right, as the ultimate.
Yeah, the shoreline, yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was muted.
That's fine. Just one thing, there's about 4 things that are left on this direction sheet from 2025. I think that needs to be cleaned up. We've been doing a really good job. At one time, this went on for several years, but we've been doing a really good job of keeping this nice and tight and neat for the last couple of years. So let's keep that going. And with that, no further business in front of us. Who wants to do the honors? It's time to adjourn. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Manager Small.
Roll
All right, Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Baki,
Aye.
Manager Taves,
Aye.
President Anderson.
Aye. I want to thank you. The robust discussions like this, I love. And we had some good discussions tonight on a couple of issues. And I appreciate your input. Thank you. And your involvement.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
You.
Thank you. Good night.